Today I wanted to bring back the top 5s by taking a look at the top 5 games that I would recommend that are role-playing games or RPG element-filled games for Halloween to play. Now, these are games that I've tried to do my best to pick a wide variety of gameplay styles on, and I've tried to pick things that fit the holiday, but we'll just hop right into the list real quick here, and you'll kind of see what we're going for. If you have any suggestions for role-playing games to play for Halloween or during the spooky season in general, be sure to leave them down in the comments down below. And I do have a question of the day for you, which would be, what is your favorite horror-inspired or filled with horror elements RPG? Just let me know. I'm interested to hear.
Number 5.
The first game is one I recently made a video on, which is Bloodborne. This is one of my favorite games from Software, and this game is heavily inspired by the lore and mythos of things like H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu type horror, outer space mixed with gothic architecture. Very interesting and psychological. I love this game to death. And this is a game that people for many years have been saying, please bring to PC officially, or please make a PS5 version or something, put it somewhere, because it launched back, I believe, in 2015 on the PlayStation 4. It was very much a Souls-like type game. Obviously, since From Software made it, it was in that same vein, but I think it did a really good job of incorporating that kind of gameplay with gunplay for parrying, with all kinds of horror elements. I love the lore of this, and it's so open-ended and so open to interpretation that it's one of those games that I think you can go back to, replay over and over and over again, and enjoy it in either the same or even different ways depending on your play style, the character you make, etc. Now, one of the most interesting features in this game is chalice dungeons. It's sort of these randomized dungeons that you can spawn and then go through. So there are sort of these, I guess I would say, random elements to the game if you want there to be, but also you're able to play through a fully fleshed out world that was handcrafted by developers as well with care, with all kinds of story there. So you can play sort of these different versions of the same game, like different gameplay versions of the same game. It's hard to describe without you actually playing it, but it's something I think is really cool how they incorporate both of those ideas. It's not just a set world, and it's not just a randomized world that lacks purpose. There are different ways to engage with the game depending on what you want.
Number 4. It's the 4th one.
4.
The next one is FNAF World. Now, some people are going to say, ugh, Five Nights at Freddy's. I've heard of this a billion times. No one shuts up about it. It even got a movie. Yeah, I get it. Popular thing, bad. Sometimes it's a bit annoying to hear about the same thing over and over again. But FNAF World is actually a very interesting and unique game in this franchise that has since been delisted. Now, luckily, it is available as freeware, essentially a free game, through several services. I got the game directly through Game Jolt, but it's not something that's widely distributed anymore. Now, that said, I still think it's a fun game, even though creator Scott Cawthon seems to have distanced himself from it, and since, for a lot of political reasons, distanced himself from the actual franchise. This is a game that's sort of a turn-based RPG set in that world of Five Nights at Freddy's, except it's not really set in that world. It's very interesting. And the FNAF lore, it's something that I'm not even going to begin to try and describe, but this game actually takes cues from classic RPGs like Final Fantasy. As you move through a world map, you actually encounter enemies that were handcrafted for the game, and you use the animatronic characters from the different FNAF games up to that point, who have their own unique individual abilities, attacks, etc. If you're a fan of the franchise, it's pretty fun. If you just like the iconography of the franchise, like maybe the style, but the gameplay wasn't for you, I think it's also something that works really well. And this is also a game where it's got creepy elements. It's got mini games that sort of tie into the lore to questionable canonicity, but it is a game where it's like got creepy elements, but it's also not a horror game. And I think that's kind of fun and important to put on a list like this, because when it comes to Halloween, I think sometimes people focus so much on the horror aspect and not on the other aspects of it. And this is a game that I think kind of combines the lore of a horror franchise with an RPG. It's not very long, and it's very fun.
Number three.
Now the next one is Fallout 76. I feel like I put two niche picks here next to each other where people are going to roll their eyes, but here's the thing with Fallout 76. If you know anything about the lore of Fallout, the bombs dropped right around Halloween. So Halloween decorations were up, everybody was kind of ready to celebrate that holiday, and then the nukes went off, and then the world ended. But it crawled out of the wreckage and survived in many ways. Now, Fallout 76 is the Fallout game closest to the nukes landing, but also it is a game that seems to have, I would argue, some of the most preserved world because of that. You know, where you still see a lot of these decorations. You're still able to get all kinds of Halloween costumes. There still are Halloween events each year. And while this is an online game with basically the ability to play on a private server if you are a Fallout First member, or the ability to play with other people in their worlds or join servers, etc., this is a game that I think does fit, again, into the lore of like being, or I should say into the role of being creepy at times, but it's not at all a horror game. You know, there are places you can go for like creepy type quests where they might deal a little bit with the supernatural, or they might deal a little bit with these Halloween elements of the world, but also it's just a world that you can enjoy and explore in general. I also think that it's something I included in this list because it's a different type of game. While it is sort of this open world RPG, bordering on MMORPG, just not massively multiplayer, more just like normal multiplayer, since the servers are not that big. It's also a game that incorporates first-person shooter elements, it incorporates inventory management, it incorporates, I would say, house building, you know, like settlement building in your own creations. It's a game that I really enjoy, and one that I've actually defended before, because even though it does have a lot of microtransaction-y stuff in it you can, I guess, buy into if you want, and I'm not going to pretend I haven't bought some settlement items before, I just think it's a fun world to explore with your friends, and I really enjoy that. I still hope at some point there is some kind of offline mode, some kind of preservation of this world and game. I guess even if there's not, there's probably going to be some extremely talented Fallout 4 modder who recreates the map and puts it in Fallout 4 at some point. But nevertheless, it's a game that I think fits into the Halloween season without being outright horror.
Number two, the numero dos.
Darkest Dungeon is a game I recently started playing that is very much a horror-inspired roguelike RPG. Now, this game is fascinating to me. It's also very stressful, but essentially it follows you, the inheritor or descendant of a great family who is returning back to your home, and you're banding together with allies, you're bringing in new warriors, etc., to fight for your home against Lovecraftian style horror. And you might find on this list, I really love Lovecraft. I really love that kind of horror. But something I think is really cool with this game is that essentially it follows the idea of your ancestor, your older member of your family, sort of longed for adventure, and he dug deep down into the base, or I should say the basement and the underside of the castle, the mansion, the estate where he lived, to try and find this folk tale that was told throughout the family of like a powerful deity slash powerful creature lurking beneath. But when he lets that out, it kind of ruins a good portion of the world, especially in that area. So you're returning to try and reclaim your family's heritage. You're using these different warriors that you recruit through different means in order to do so. And actually it's based around stress. It's based around the ideas of adventuring and the ideas of what that can do to people's sanity. And I thought that this was a really interesting idea because it's turn-based, sort of like that classic turn-based RPG type game, but also it combines a lot of rogue-like elements into it, where you're trying to manage this party, you're trying to manage their stress, you're trying to manage your inventory, you're trying to make sure your characters don't permanently die, because when they die, and you're trying to make it through this story as you uncover what was actually brought up out of the depths of your family's heritage. I think it's really fun and interesting. It's not a game I can play for a long time because just the constant like managing the party and stuff is a little stressful for me, but it's a very cool game with an amazing art style, and I think it's fantastic. It's definitely a game that fits in with the Halloween season.
Number 1!
Splat.
The final game on our list is Parasite Eve. Now, a lot of these games that I've mentioned are ones that I want to Let's Play on my other channel, Degenerate Plays, which is my Let's Play channel, so if you haven't followed that, please check it out. That's in the description below. But Parasite Eve is probably at the top of that list for me. Out of these, it's one of the ones I want to play the most over there, because it's a very interesting survival horror type game that combines inventory management and it combines the exploration of a game like Resident Evil with, of course, turn-based RPG mechanics, and also, I would say, modern day, or at the time when it was released, modern day weaponry. So things like guns, knives, you know, that sort of stuff, where you're actually going up against these mutated creatures, you're going up against all of these different horror creatures or horror-inspired creatures, and you're doing so in a turn-based RPG game. I really like this series of games. What's unfortunate about Parasite Eve is that each game changed pretty significantly. So 2's gameplay started to depart a lot from 1, 3's gameplay is just worlds apart. I really wish there were more games like Parasite Eve 1, which is also a sequel to a book, which I didn't know that even before now. I had just played the game. I never read any book, but now I kind of want to. Regardless, this game is something that I think is truly special and something that I think flies under the radar a lot of times because its series deviated so wildly from the very first entry every time they made a new game. The protagonist is likable, the story is fascinating, the gameplay is fun, the world is creative. If you just put someone in a room with this game, didn't tell them what it was, and told them this was a Resident Evil turn-based RPG, I think at least for a little bit you could confuse them into thinking that. So it really does have those Resident Evil vibes to it, which is something I really connect with as well. But it does really bring the horror, it brings the creepiness, and it does make you feel at times very much like you are not that powerful compared to the world around you, and I find that to be a really fun gameplay loop and story to engage in. So these are 5 games that I would highly recommend, role-playing games I should say specifically that I would highly recommend for the Halloween or creepy season or following that season, since we're pretty much there. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know what your game suggestions are, if you have any opinions on the games that I listed, and also, of course, as well, the question of the day, and we have our own store, cosmobunny.shop, where you can buy coasters, keychains, trays, and more from repurposed, recycled comic book, manga, magazine, and more paper. These are different books that were not able to be sold by local shops that we actually take, we repurpose, and we transform into new art for your home, trying to make new things out of that, give a little life to it, and preserve it, and of course, as well, hoping that you enjoy that. So we also have handmade jewelry over there that my wife Jill does, all kinds of fun stuff. We're going into the holiday season coming up in the next couple months, so lots of stuff over there. If you want to support our channel, you can use code DJAY123 for 10% off over there, and that same code works on Fortnite to help support our channel as well. We hope you have a fantastic day. Check out Degenerate Plays in the description below if you're interested in a Let's Play channel where we're going to play through all kinds of fun games together. And as always, everyone, stay shway.